For the last 20 years, the general public has had this bizarre, persistent myth that drone warfare is basically just playing Call of Duty but with real-world consequences. People call it the PlayStation mentality. The idea is that some 19-year-old kid is sitting in a comfy chair mashing the X button to drop a Hellfire missile on a guy thousands of miles away and then going to Applebee's afterward without feeling a thing. That is complete and utter. In 2026, drone operators are traumatized, and the United States military is desperately trying to figure out what to do with a fleet of multi-million-dollar remote-controlled airplanes that suddenly can't survive in the sky anymore. But first, we need to understand why the MQ-9 slaps, or, well, used to slap. Before the Reaper, we had the MQ-1 Predator. Designed by a guy named Abraham Karem, the Predator was great at its job, but its job was basically just being a creepy guy with a really expensive pair of binoculars. It watched things, but it had a tiny payload and it was slow as hell. If it saw a high-value individual stepping out of a mud hut, the operators had to call in a separate strike aircraft to actually do the killing. By the time an F-16 showed up, the guy was usually gone. The military realized this was stupid. They needed a platform that could find the guy and kill the guy in a single sortie. So General Atomics got to work. In February 2001, they debuted the Predator B-001 proof of concept, eventually birthing the MQ-9 Reaper. By 2006, Air Force Chief of Staff General T. Michael Mosley officially acknowledged a massive doctrinal shift. We were no longer just spying, we were actively hunting. When the Reaper officially entered service in May 2007, that name wasn't just edgy marketing drip from General Atomics. The MQ-9 Reaper is a medium-altitude, long-endurance UAV. It is powered by a 950 shaft horsepower Honeywell TPE-331 turboprop engine. That is roughly 9 times the horsepower of the old MQ-1 Predator. It's got a 66-foot wingspan and a 36-foot fuselage, which gives it an incredibly high glide ratio. It cruises at roughly 194 to 230 miles per hour, tops out at 300 miles per hour, and has an operational ceiling of 50,000 feet. But the stat that actually matters is its endurance. Depending on the payload, this thing can fly unrefueled for 27 to 30 hours, giving it a range of about 1,150 miles. The MQ-9 can carry 3,800 pounds of absolute devastation distributed across 7 hardpoints. That is 15 times the ordnance of the MQ-1. We are talking a signature loadout of up to 8 Hellfire air-to-ground missiles, 500-pound laser-guided bombs, and JDAMs. To actually see what it's blowing up, it uses the multispectral targeting system. This integrates electro-optical and infrared cameras, laser designators, and laser rangefinders. It also packs synthetic aperture radar, which sounds like something from Star Trek, but basically just means the drone can track ground movement through clouds, smoke, and shitty weather. Because of this insane loiter time and payload, the MQ-9 created what military nerds call an unblinking eye. Instead of flying overhead for an hour and leaving, a Reaper can just loiter outside of visual and acoustic range for an entire day. It applies constant, suffocating psychological and physical pressure to a terrorist network. It fractures their communication, forces commanders to hide in caves, and systematically dismantles their command and control. Even into late 2023, the U.S. Air Force's Central Command was openly stating that the MQ-9 was conducting the vast majority of air-to-ground strikes against extremist organizations in the Middle East. Now we have to talk about the heavy stuff, because you can't talk about the Reaper without talking about the absolute ethical nightmare it created. There's this concept called the paradox of riskless warfare. In traditional white man's technology warfare, violence is ethically licensed because of mutual risk. You shoot at me, I shoot at you. We are both risking our lives, so it's fair in the eyes of international law. The MQ-9 takes that concept, throws it in a wood chipper, and sets the wood chipper on fire. By putting the pilot in a trailer in Nevada and the drone in the sky over Syria, you create a completely unilateral application of force. Critics argue that when you remove physical risk from the attacker, politicians get a little too trigger-happy, leading to endless low-intensity conflicts because, hey, nobody's bags are coming home, right? Proponents of the drone will argue the exact opposite. They'll say the MQ-9 is the most ethical weapon in human history. Because it can loiter for 27 hours, operators have the time to verify targets with extreme certainty. They use low-yield Hellfire variants to minimize collateral damage, creating this operational culture obsessed with zero civilian casualties. But here's the reality check. Systemic intelligence failures happen. The drone's camera might be 4K, but if the intelligence telling you who to look at is garbage, you're still dropping a 500-pound bomb on the wrong house. And that brings us back to the operators. When an F-35 pilot drops a bomb, they're flying at Mach 1. They pickle the weapon, they egress, and they are gone. They don't stick around to see the mess. An MQ-9 crew might watch a single target for 3 weeks. They learn the guy's daily routine. They see him drink his morning tea. They learn his wife's face. They watch him play with his kids and his dog. They internalize his humanity. And then the order comes down. They push the button. They watch the missile travel. They watch the explosive impact in high-definition thermal infrared. And the worst part? They don't get to look away. They have to stick around to conduct the battle damage assessment. They have to zoom in and visually confirm the shattered, burning remains of the human being they've been practically living with for a month. They watch the first responders arrive. They watch the family run out into the courtyard. And then their shift ends. They drive out of the base and they have to go pick up milk at the grocery store. A landmark 2015 Air Force Culture and Process Improvement Program study finally blew the lid off this. MQ-9 operators were suffering from severe morale crises, chronic fatigue, and massive spikes in substance abuse. They were suffering from profound moral injury, executing intimate, remote violence on a daily basis with absolutely unbounded combat schedules. I genuinely cannot imagine a worse mindfuck, and frankly, I'm not smart or stable enough to handle it, which is why I make YouTube videos instead. So the Reaper changed warfare. It broke terrorists and it broke its own operators. But nothing lasts forever. The MQ-9 was built for permissive environments. That's military speak for airspace, where the enemy is a bunch of village people cosplayers who don't have radar-guided surface-to-air missiles. Against a near-peer adversary, a modern nation-state with an integrated air defense system, the Reaper is basically a massive, slow-moving piñata. It has a huge radar cross-section, it has no stealth, it has no electronic warfare countermeasures, and early this year, during Operation Epic Fury, theory became a very violent, very expensive reality. The US lost at least 12 MQ-9 Reapers in highly contested airspace. 12! At roughly $30 a pop, that is over $360 million turned into smoking aluminum confetti. Enemy air defenses just ate them alive. Oh, and because the universe has a sick sense of humor, not all of them were enemy kills. One Reaper had to be deliberately crashed into the ocean just to prevent the bad guys from capturing it. Another one was reportedly blown out of the sky by a suspected friendly fire incident from Qatari air defense systems, which honestly is peak coalition warfare. Hey man, sorry I vaporized your $30 drone, my finger slipped. On top of getting physically shot down, the MQ-9 is incredibly vulnerable to electronic warfare. It relies entirely on Ku-band satellite communications and C-band line-of-sight data links. If a country like Russia or China jams that signal, the Reaper becomes a very expensive brick. It doesn't have the deep, onboard autonomous AI to fight a complex mission by itself. If you cut the Wi-Fi, it just kind of wanders off or flies in a circle until it dies. So what happens now? Do we just throw them all in the trash? No, the military never throws anything away. They just repurpose it until it falls apart. The Pentagon is aggressively shifting its focus away from counterterrorism in the Middle East and pivoting hard to the Pacific theater for great power competition. Cruisers currently running exercises like Agile Reaper, training for maritime interdiction and combat search and rescue over the ocean. But the biggest change is coming from the Marine Corps. This year, VMU-3, a Marine Unmanned Aerial Vehicle Squadron, is getting initial operational deployment of the Sky Tower 2 Airborne Network Extension Pod. After a bunch of successful integration testing, they are strapping this pod onto the MQ-9. It basically turns the Reaper into a flying cross-domain communications node. It connects naval ships, ground troops, and other aircraft across the massive empty stretches of the Indo-Pacific. They took the deadliest hunter-killer drone in human history and turned it into a mesh Wi-Fi extender for the Marines. Honestly, I respect the hustle, but the writing is on the wall. The Air Force knows the MQ-9's days as a frontline combatant are over, which is why they are pumping billions into the MQ Next program, aiming for a replacement by the end of the decade. Lockheed Martin, Northrop Grumman, General Atomics, all the big defense primes are pitching wild stuff. We are talking tailless flying wings with radar-evading stealth. We are talking hybrid electric and jet propulsion, so they don't sound like a lawnmower at 20,000 feet. Most importantly, we are talking autonomy. The next generation of drones will not need a traumatized 20-year-old constantly in the loop. Artificial intelligence will handle sensor fusion, target classification, and route optimization. If the signal gets jammed, the AI will just shrug and keep executing the mission. We are also moving towards swarming technology, using dozens of cheap, expendable drones to overwhelm air defenses rather than risking one exquisite multi-million-dollar platform. Now, in 2026, the era of the Reaper reigning supreme over undisputed skies is dead. Operation Epic Fury proved that you cannot bring a 2007 turboprop to a 2026 electronic warfare fight. The MQ-9 will stick around for a while, acting as a maritime router and dropping the occasional bomb when the airspace is safe. But it paved the way for something much darker, an era of stealthy, swarming, AI-driven robotic warfare, where the human element is removed entirely. And honestly, I'm not sure if I'm more scared of the drone that needs a human to pull the trigger, or the one that doesn't. If you liked this video, hit the like button. If you hated it, destroy the comment section. Either way, subscribe. I promise I'll do better next time.